Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is Duckville here. We've got a PVT coming at you right now. It is going to be on Akalon Waste, the shabby grandeur of this desert zone. Down the bottom right hand side, currently playing for Team FXO. He recently qualified to the WCS NA Challenger League. It is Drunken Boy. He's a Canadian player who's been doing really well. He beat a couple of really good players in the Premier League qualifier, but unfortunately fell down in the end. But then did quite well in the Challenger League and beat Cats, and I believe he beat Pig as well. So a couple of big Zerg snipes there. Of course, beating Pig is something that made me a little bit sad, but hey, we'll see what he gets up to in this game. His opponent up at the top left-hand side as our blue Protoss player, formerly with Root, then with Complexity, but now back with Root again. It is Minigun, and he's going to be our player up at the top left-hand side here. So this should be a really interesting game. Both of these players, of course, really decent, I suppose, North American players in their own right. Perhaps if you're MLG, then maybe Drunken Boy is American. I saw some of the interesting country notations for some of the players during the Challenger League, where apparently everybody, if they're not Korean, they're American. It was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. We'll see what these guys do, because they are definitely very good players. Of course, Drunken Boy has been sort of making his way up a little bit, not necessarily just sniping off huge people like, you know, Tasia and you know, other big names and Jaedong and all these kind of crazy Koreans, but has been getting a couple of really good kills in the various competitions that he's been part of, and we are looking to see how he goes in future. Of course, Minigun, a solid player throughout, well, not only Brood War, but also now in SC2 as well. One of the very famous names, of course, part of the Root Gaming team, where they do have some of their very notable figures there, and Minigun obviously one of their really decent Protoss players alongside Sage as well. And we'll see him starting out with 2 gas opening at the moment. Not going to be just a simple 1 gas expand or anything like that, which you do tend to see from time to time. Drunken Boy going to open us up with a Reaper, so we'll see what he gets up to. So Drunken Boy, I do know he does like to do things a little unorthodox sometimes. Like if you're watching the Premier League qualifiers over in WCS NA, he did a really cool Hellion build that actually just got a huge kill. I can't remember who the Zerg was. It is actually slipping my mind right now, but he did really well with that. And of course, this map does, you know, I think for both of these races, they can have a very successful time. For a Terran player, of course, you've got this very simple natural expansion. You can wall off just off to the side here if you want to. You can then take down the rocks and head down into the third base. You can either take this one down to the side, or you can take this one over here. It's sort of dependent on how you're particularly playing. But Drunken Boy going to head inside with his Reaper, pulls the Zealot down the ramp, which is very clever. In fact, he's sort of maneuvered the Zealot out of position here, and the Zealot's just sort of chasing after that SCV, going to get absolutely nothing done. Drunken Boy needs to be very careful inside that mineral line there. In fact, a sentry comes along, and technically speaking, a Reaper will beat a sentry, but only when he's got full health. So this guy's going to have to head back and regen up for the moment. The sentry just going to be very careful. This is a very important zone. Like, a lot of people sort of miss out on that little spot there, but actually we'll get to that in just a second. Looks like we'll have a little bit of a micro battle here between these two players. Of course, if the Reaper gets into position, it can jump up on the high ground, but he just decides to kill off that probe, and then he'll sacrifice his life. And yeah, but as I was saying, sort of, you do have to be very careful of this spot here. This is a very common path that a lot of Terran players, if they've got a Reaper out, maybe 2 Reapers out, sometimes proxy racks Reapers can come across and be built in positions over here. And then this is a very common path to take. So if you are you know, dealing with someone who's going for Reapers, just be very careful of this sort of area just here where they can jump up and sometimes go a little bit undetected. Of course, another path which people like to take is around the back here, down the back of the mineral line, and then up on this side here. So that's just a couple of little, you know, Reaper, you know, the more you know kind of things that I'll throw out there for you guys today. Drunken Boy back at home has opened up with the old school 1-1-1 style opening. However, he is going to switch the factory over to the reactor, drop down the racks here, and we'll see. The interesting part here will be, yep, there it is. So it's going to be a medevac, so we may see a couple of Hellbats come out very soon from Drunken Boy. We do have that armory down the back, halfway done. So this has become a very popular thing in TvZ in the North American scene is for a lot of players to get out these Hellbat drops, but in fact, actually no, he's going to go for a couple of Hellions first off. We do have a Widowmine over here to defend at the front as well, but with those few Marines, he may actually decide just to pick up these Marines and the Widowmines, so this could be a little bit different to what I thought it was going to be. These few Hellions going to be left at home, and yeah, it definitely is going to be a Marine mine drop coming out of Drunken Boy to open us up here with the main sort of harassment that'll be starting up this game. Minigun back at home, we've got 3 gates, we've got a robo, he will have an observer out. The big question will be, will it be in the position to protect the main mineral line? And given that he already has one out down here at the natural, I think he should be okay. But yeah, and there you go, very cleverly done. Minigun just going to sit this observer back off here, and he should be fine to defend against this attack. So the interesting thing will be, is he going to have enough to defend against the Hellions at the front? There are 2 Stalkers here, and the Mothership Core is there as well. He does have enough energy for a Photon Overcharge on the Nexus as well. It looks like the Widowmine does get down in the ground, but not quick enough, it would seem. The Hellions also making their way just straight inside the main. Really interesting usage of those Hellions. They're not deciding to attack into the natural, and while they do initially get blocked out by a couple of force fields, he has to run them around again. May decide to run back in. We won't get too many worker kills here. It looks like the medevac of Drunken Boy has just dived off to the corner there. Won't get too many kills, maybe 1 or 2 probe kills, but not much at all. Let's look at the worker kill tally. We've got 3 in total. It's not a huge amount. I'm not really sure that's exactly worth it, but what he has done, he's sort of just opened us up. He said to Minigun, you know, I'm not just going to let you sit back and just continually make probes. He did force out a couple of units here, and you know, we will see if Minigun will be safe, because this medevac just hanging off down the back there, geez, that is like almost off the map there. In fact, it is. If you look on the minimap, it's almost off the map. But we will see another drop coming in. This time it is going to be that Hellbat drop, which I mentioned before. So he's going to head around through the bottom left-hand side of the map. 3rd command center on the way. It looks like we will have some mech coming out of Drunken Boy. This should be really fun. If you've been watching some of the recent casts on the channel, we have seen a few players doing some mech. Of course, Breach battling out with White Ra, and here we go with the drops inside the natural. Not prepared for that at all was Minigun, but he activates that Photon Overcharge on the Nexus. Medevac will get out of there pretty quick, but I think he's going to be sniped off quite quickly. But the Hellbats do get out. They're going to drop out, get some damage on those Stalkers here. If they can make their way inside that mineral line, in fact, the secondary drop up the top, very nicely done by Drunken Boy. Nice little amount of multitasking going on here. Probes moving through the Stalkers, mineral walking across into the assimilator, so they do get out of harm's way for the most part. And that is a pretty sizable amount of workers killed now, sitting up at 12. And Minigun, he's going to have to decide where he's going to go from here. It looks like we've got double upgrades coming along with the first of the Colossus now making its way out. The medevac comes back through, a secondary medevac now dropping off inside the mineral line. There are a lot of hurt probes there, and we see 1 or 2 go down. Yeah, just the 1 for the moment. Medevac again going to head back to the back left-hand side corner and just sort of camp out there for a moment, while more medevacs now heading out for Drunken Boy. So he's just going to continue on this harassment. What this is doing back at home is just giving him time to set up the mech forces, which are a very powerful force. The tanks and those Hellbats, when you mix them all together, they make a nice meal for any sort of Terran army. And there we go, another little bit of a drop going on. Unfortunately, the very short range of the Hellbats really affecting that attack there. So Drunken Boy will need to get out of there as quickly as possible, activates the Ignite Afterburners, and gets out of there with no losses for the time being. So Minigun now going to scout through. He hasn't seen exactly what's going on here from Drunken Boy, but now he has. We've got a lot of Hellbats out. We've got the tanks here. You can sort of suspect just from that it is going to be mech. Like, you don't often see that many Hellbats at this sort of stage here. But I think with the 3rd command center on the way, he will be able to recognize that it is going to be a mech play coming out of our FXO NA Terran player here in this game on Akalon Waste. So the worker count currently sitting at 55 to 52. Not a huge lead for Drunken Boy, despite some of those really good drops that he was doing there, but he has been able to secure a 3rd base. And with this 3rd command center dropping down at mules all over the place, he will be able to move himself into a pretty decent position. He does have +2 to vehicle weapons on the way. So he's going to quickly take himself up into this mech play, and we'll see how he is going to utilize this, because there are a lot of different ways to do this. If you saw White Ra versus versus Breach. We saw Breach using quite a lot of like sort of tank mine-based pushes. This time from Drunkenboi, I don't think we're going to see that. He hasn't really invested too much in the Widow mines at all. In fact, I haven't, apart from that first one that we saw heading out onto the in the first medevac drop, we haven't actually seen any more other than that. So Drunkenboi is going to be looking for a little bit of a different composition, and I would advise, if you haven't seen that game that I've been sort of referring to right now, Breach versus Whiterun, please do go have a look. It was a really interesting mech versus Protoss game. The Minigun, he's got a couple of Colossi out. His upgrades are powering along right now. We do have Charge being researched as well. Helps out in dealing with some of the drops that can come along. And Drunkenboi just says, "I'm coming right in, buddy. I don't care about those 3 Colossi there." And he gets a couple of kills. I think that was just 2 or 3 of those probes go down, but the drop continues inside the main base, but doesn't get too far. Looks like he's going to have to drop off at the natural yet again. Says, well, he's sort of decided, I'm in a little bit of trouble right now. Loses one of the medevacs. Luckily for him, that didn't actually have anything in it. So 3 of these Hellbats will survive for the moment, and I really do like, this is like a constant harassment style coming out of Drunkenboi to try and you know, we mentioned before, just sort of setting himself up for the mech place. He's adding on a few more factories, but the big issue is with mech is just sort of getting up to that 200 max supply without letting a Protoss just sit up on 3 bases, get like, you know, 70 probes up and running without any harassment or anything like that. Minigun, please click those probes onto the minerals. You'll have to see that very soon. There you go. And as I was saying, it's sort of a matter of just sort of getting to that, getting to a really heavy composition here. We've got lots of tanks, we've got these Hellbats as well, a few Vikings thrown in for good measure. I do like seeing those added in. But the thing is sort of getting to that point where you have this very strong army without letting a Protoss get too far ahead. So we'll see that Minigun is now starting to add in some Immortals. We've got Archons also being added in. These guys are so powerful against mech with their 202 upgrades. Minigun has been just blasting along with that, and he's up very high in those upgrades right now. But the big push now coming along, we'll see how much damage this can do. Drunkenboi needs to be very careful with his siege up timing. Doesn't want to do it too late because he'll get torn apart by all of the units there. Doesn't want to do it too early because then you won't actually get anything done and you'll have to unsiege and re-siege. But what he has done here is very nicely done. Dropping off some of those Hellbats there, just putting them in a position where they can soak up some of the Colossus, the Immortal damage as well, while the tanks at the back get ready to siege up. And he's going to look for a position here where he can just sort of siege up and then start laying waste to some of these buildings that are here for Minigun. And that Templar Archives, that is the most exposed Templar Archives I have ever seen. But Minigun, he's going to have to hold up for now because he will need to deal with this force just slowly coming through at his front door. Of course, with a mech Terran, you want to be very, very slow with your pushes when you get to this sort of point. When you've got the tanks all sieged up and ready to go, you don't want to just unsiege all of them and slowly move them up. You want to just slowly leapfrog them up. Just sort of make sure you've got vision of what's going on. You can see what the Protoss forces are up to, and just put yourself in a position where you can slaughter them all if they do try and move ahead and force a battle. But Drunkenboi, very nicely done with his macro here. He's going to set up his 4th base, but the battle will occur here at the bottom of Minigun's natural base. We can see Zealots coming in from the backside. Nice flank with those Zealots and the Immortals blasting through everything there. Puts Minigun in a nice spot and lets him get his economy back up and running. What we'll probably see is Minigun take a 4th base, set himself up with a nice production setup as well. I would not be surprised to see him add in maybe 1 or 2 more robo facilities just to allow him to really crank out those the Immortals and maybe a Colossus or 2. However, I wouldn't really advise going for a large amount of Colossus in this sort of composition when you're dealing with mech, because tanks outrange them and they will just decimate them if there's a large counter tanks, and of course with those Vikings up in the sky. So we'll see Minigun pushing forward now. These Hellions, they do have blue flame, I believe. Yes, they do. So they can do really well against things like those speaking of blue flame Hellions, drop at the 3rd base. Very nicely done by Drunkenboi there. Gets quite a few of those probes. 37 worker kills in total. Those how did they get through? They just must have run by, and that was a pretty quick run by from Drunkenboi. But now he's up to 4 bases. He's got 69 SCVs. All of those orbital commands, dropping down mules as well. And, well, he's looking pretty decent. The one thing I'm a little bit questionable about is the lack of the armor for the vehicles here. We don't even have it researching. Normally when players mech, you do like to see double armories here, but he's decided to go for things slightly differently. He's going to get that +3 to the attack upgraded as quickly as possible. Now we'll see a possible couple of run-bys here, a little bit of a distraction up at the top side, but the Hellions are actually on their way inside the natural base, it looks like. 3-3 being researched for Minigun. Keep that in mind, because those upgrades are really going to factor in for him late as the game sort of progresses. Very nice block with the Zealot Warp in there, but the probe still under fire from those Blue Flame Hellions. And the main forces of Minigun come along, those Hellions getting caught out, and the Time Warp makes them dance again, just down to the front of the natural there, and they will be forced back. So, Drunken Boy still continuing on with his heavy harassment style. As we can see, we've got Minigun now up to a total of 62 probes. He's mining away at a pretty decent rate right now, but the big factor is this 3-3 that's now coming through. We've got a couple more gates on the way, just sort of walling off this front section here, and Minigun will have to deal with another push. I think the Drunken Boy is going to max out in a second here and look for another push. He wants to get in here and delay this fourth base. If he can stomp down that fourth without losing too many forces for it, and perhaps move his way back, then he'll certainly be happy with that. If he engages and sort of has an even trade with all of those Terran forces, that's, you know, that's okay, as long as he takes out some of these power units, like the Archons, the Immortals. As long as they all go down, then that should be a really decent trade for him. But the Vikings taking down those Colossi up in the air. The tanks are a little bit far back here, but they are sieged up, and they do take apart quite a lot of the units. But the Archons moving forward with their very, very tanky shields. Of course, their upgrades added in, and that is not the best of trades there for Drunken Boy. So we'll see him have to resupply as quickly as he can. The Vikings did survive, which is nice. He can take care of that Colossus, also the Mothership Core. Don't want to let Minigun use a recall or anything like that. But Minigun has really put himself in a solid position there, despite Drunken Boy having a nice fourth base up and running. As I said, he does have a little bit of a slow sort of pace on that armor upgrade right now. Also, do want to see the Ghost coming out now, and I think we're going to start. Yeah, there we go. So three racks with Tech Labs now being added on. So he's going to start producing those Ghosts. We've got the Mobius reactor, so the Ghost will have enough energy to throw down some EMPs, and that is a big factor in mech versus Protoss. If you can get the EMPs down on some of these Immortals, the Archons as well, that will really turn the tide of the battle in your favor if you can do that. But the continual harassment is something that I do love from Drunken Boy. Here he's just relentless with all of these attacks here, looking to try and snipe off some of these Templar. If they can throw down some good storms on clumped groups of tanks, then these guys are absolutely worth their weight in minerals. So he's going to try and snipe some of them off before they can get their storms thrown down. But Minigun looking to expand to a fifth base, just down towards the bottom left-hand side here, and a couple of Hellbats make their way inside the third base. Get a few kills, not a huge amount, 53-0 right now. Keep that in mind, folks. 53 worker kills to 0. Minigun has not been able to get any harassment done. We haven't seen any oracles or anything like that, but he has been on the back foot for quite a lot of this game. But he has been on the back foot and been very steady with that back foot. So he's sort of, he's been holding himself together right now. He's up to 303 in the upgrade, looking excellent with those upgrades now up and running. We do see that Drunken Boy has now taken a fifth base up towards the top side here. He does need that gas to come through. With all of these Ghosts now starting to come out with 3 at a time, that's quite a lot of gas that you do need to invest in all of that. He's got 4 out at the moment, with the tank count currently sitting at 14. We've got 8 Hellbats here to tank out at the front as well, along with a few Hellions. And it looks like, speaking of Hellbats, another drop inside the third base by Drunken Boy. He is doing an excellent job with that, but hasn't really gotten too many kills here. He will get in the medevac and jet out of there as quickly as possible just to fight another day. Doesn't necessarily need to do damage all the time, but what he does need to do is try and keep those units alive as best as possible. And speaking of keeping alive, gets inside the natural base here, gets a few more probe kills. This isn't going to matter a huge amount right now for Minigun. In fact, as we see another drop down at the third base, but Drunken Boy, relentless harassment continues on in this game. He's killed so many workers here, 65 workers to 0 right now, and Drunken Boy has just been keeping his opponent back right now. We sort of mentioned, you know, keeping the Protoss on the back foot, and that is one thing which he has done so well so far. And what this has let him do is finally get that +2 on the vehicle, armor on the way, cloak is being researched, the ghost count now up at a decent total of 9. You want to kind of look towards 10, anywhere above 10 is a nice amount of ghosts to have out. If they have cloak, that is even better as well. They don't necessarily need to have cloak, but it is really good for their survivability. But Drunken Boy putting himself in a pretty reasonable position right now. The one thing that we do need to be cautious of is a possible Stargate tech switch from Minigun. But for the moment, he's going to stick with these ground-based compositions. We've got a lot of Immortals out. He's got, of course, that 303 upgrades, which is just an excellent upgrade to have. I really would like to see him pick up the shields. Yes, he is. +1 to shields. Just about to finish up now. Another drop inside the 4th base here by Drunken Boy. Gets a Stalker kill there. That's pretty funny to see. The Stalker will try and back up. 313 on their upgrades now, guys. And we can see that Minigun, these drops are doing less and less. We'll probably see him really cannon up this base, probably a couple at the front, maybe a couple just off to the side here, and then he'll put himself in a position where he doesn't need to head back to defend that. And the Vikings getting stormed away there, just up in the sky, a little bit of turbulence for those guys up in there. But the Ghost now pushing along. The Ghost is going to be a big factor here if he can get perhaps some really good EMPs. We do see one catches a Ghost, catches a Templar, and then another Templar as well. Very nicely done. He's going to move forward. Need to see that EMP go down. Then he can blast away at this Protoss heavy Robo army. But I think this is going to be a very interesting battle here. This may actually decide the fate of this game right now. Minigun, will he be able to defend against this? Slowly moving down the ramp, getting stomped on by all of those tanks, but the storms are perfect. Some Jangby level storms there. Drunken Boy's Ghost a little bit out of position, wasn't able to get the EMPs down in time. But the trade still looks reasonable for Drunken Boy here. He's been able to get a lot of those, the Immortals are dead, the Archons are dead as well. And as we look at the unit count, we can see that Minigun has been sort of slowed down quite a lot there. But the big factor is that, you know, Drunken Boy did lose a lot of his tanks. We're now down to just the 4 tanks at the moment, most of those just reproducing now. And his +3 upgrade still only just now about to finish up. Perhaps that push could have waited a tiny bit longer, but Minigun is going to start to move into a very powerful position in this game. He can start bringing in more Immortals as he chooses. These Hellions, are they going to be able to get some big probe kills? It looks like, you know, they'll get a reasonable amount done. Targets down some of the probes. 81 to 8 right now, and I'm pretty sure I haven't seen Minigun do any attacks. I'm not sure if that was just some SCV pulls there, but I may have actually missed it. I'm sorry about that, guys. But he's only gotten 8 kills in this entire game. So Drunken Boy, will he be able to hold out? This is a very troublesome position for a Terran player. You need to get those ghosts back out. Ghost count currently sitting at just the 4, which have just finished up out of those racks now. And he just needs to be very, very careful with what he does here. The choices that he makes really do affect the next portion of the game, and that is a big catch there by Drunken Boy, sniping off some of those Templar. A couple did evacuate as quickly as they could into the Archon form. But that is pretty decent right there. They didn't have massive amounts of energy, but they did have a little bit there. So looks like Drunken Boy makes his way inside the base. Yet again, I think we're going to see this go over the 100 probe kill count, up to 91 in total right now. One more, maybe just off to the side. Nope. They stacked up, but Drunken Boy didn't catch it in time. 92 probe kills in total for this game by Drunken Boy. That blue flame really helping him out in these various run-by tactics that he's been using here, and we'll see him perhaps just sort of solidify his army right now, because he definitely needs to at this stage, because Minigun is now on the march. Zealots with their 3-1-3, it's going to be 3-2-3 in a second, and that is a scary sight to behold. Drunken Boy continuing on with the drops here. The +3 to armor has finished up. We do see that the ghost count starting to move into a decent total yet again. He's up to a total of 8. I'm a little bit worried that a couple of them are down here at the racks, but another run by, a drop in fact, down at the base of Minigun, down to the bottom left-hand side, and we do see that go inside the 4th base yet again, getting so many kills here. There is a Zealot that has slowly made its way across to the planetary 5th base of Drunken Boy, but there is the feedback from a Templar catching out one of those medevacs here. This medevac drop is not going to really get too much done. All this is doing is just trying to pull some of those units back. But the big factor for Drunken Boy is he going to be able to deal with this Protoss army that is encroaching on his base? Minigun slowly making his way through. The composition consists of Archons, Stalkers, Zealots, a few Templar, a couple of Robo units there as well. And again, These drops are just absolutely amazing here from Drunken Boy. It's like some kind of dubstep artist right now because he's just dropping all over the shop. And he picked up the Hellbat, and we see the medevac fuselage just fly down into the lower recesses of Akalon Waste. But Drunken Boy has just been all over the place here today. He's now remaxed again. He's safely got a nice total of 17 tanks down, about to be 20 in a second right here. And, well, we'll see. He may be able to push through, but it looks like Minigun is slowly approaching it. Again, 3-2-3. That means these Archons can tank a huge amount of damage here. But will he be able to siege up in time? It looks like... I don't know, but the EMPs do go off. He catches quite a lot of the units. The Templar go down. The tanks slowly firing in. But they do take a few hits themselves. But Minigun is forced back. Drunken Boy, 162 supply, Minigun at 158, and Hellions, again, are doing another run-by up towards that 4th base, and Minigun will lose this attempted 6 down the bottom side here. He may even lose a 5th, but those Hellions, yet again, getting inside that base, causing the probes to retreat for the time being, and disrupting that mining for such a long time. 107 worker kills here for Drunken Boy. He's going to siege up this 5th base, and he should be able to take this out. I don't think the Minigun is going to be able to save this. There are just so many tanks here. The Ghosts are also here. They've got a few EMPs available, and Minigun on the ropes, perhaps? We'll see, because Drunken Boy has been able to secure his own 6th base here. He's got that top side. The Hellions run by yet again into that base, but the attack now commences here at the side. A huge storm that is on top of tanks and Vikings there, and Minigun plows through that army. He's absolutely annihilated that force there, but he has lost a few more probes at his 4th base, but not to worry. He'll be able to recoup those probes now very quickly, given that he does have all of these Nexi up and running. And Minigun, well, he may be able to push through here. We'll see, because he is going to need some warp ins. He is struggling for minerals right now, which is a very interesting thing for a Protoss to be doing. But it looks like he's going to try and catch Drunken Boy before he can siege up, before he can get all of those forces back together again. Some of the tanks do get together and siege up, but the Immortals plowing through all of those units there. 65 damage on armored ground targets there is a huge amount of damage there to be dealing with for Minigun. For Drunken Boy, I should say. And the Hellions, while they continue their march, they're just relentless in pushing through. Minigun, oh wow, look at that. That warp in there was perfect by Minigun. And he finally does get through, but the probes come back. He's going to lose some of those probes. They are going to be running around like headless chooks right now. But Minigun is just going to start. I think he should be able to really exert his wrath on this map right now because of those Immortals across the other side. Once a Protoss is sort of able to move into a position where you've got these very heavy, powerful anti-mech units all prepared to blast away at your opponent, you can really start to limit the Terran's effectiveness when it comes to building up mech forces. We can see the Drunken Boy has gotten together some more of these units here. We've got Hellbats again, Ghosts have been added in, and Hellions as well. But the Planetary getting blasted apart by all of those Immortals. He's going to try and take this one down. This should go down. There it is. And those Immortals are just so powerful. 4 of the Immortals there. We've got the Archon to tank as well. Hellions running by. A little bit late to the party there, guys. You need to set your watch back for daylight savings. And Drunken Boy in a very awkward spot right now. He's starting to run very low on his mineral income, and not only is the 3rd base gone, the natural, the main, and the 4th are now all but done and dusted. He's going to have to try and get this base up and running. Minigun re-securing his own economy, back up to 61 probes after losing a total of 128 during this entire game. And Minigun, well, as long as he can sort of just utilize those Immortals correctly, I think this game may be his, because Drunken Boy is going to start to struggle a little bit here, but we do see those EMPs going off on the Immortals, catch a couple of the Archons as well. The tanks have to siege up and do take apart some of those Stalkers that moved forward a little bit too hastily there, but he will be forced back for the moment. Drunken Boy holding things together, but does he have enough to push Minigun back and perhaps take care of this 5th base? Because, you know, not only is Drunken Boy starting to run low on his minerals, but Minigun as well, despite losing probes consistently throughout this game, has started to lose all of that mining here at his 3rd, at his natural, and the main as well. So Minigun is perhaps running a little bit dry himself, but he does have a nice bank of around about 600 to 700 minerals there. It's sort of bouncing around as he builds more units. We've got 2 Immortals on the way. These guys with their 3-2-3, maybe +3 on shields, will get started up in a second here, but Minigun says, I do not care about your turret, I do not care about your SCVs or the 2 refineries here, just give me some minerals and I'm good to go. So he's going to build the Nexus and he doesn't really care. He's perhaps going to throw in a couple of cannons there as well, just to make things a little bit more awkward. Drunken Boy is going to do his own damage here on the economy of Minigun dropping inside here in this base. How much will he be able to do? A little bit there. Nice pull out by Minigun very quickly with that. Gets those probes out of there because, you know, the probe count, if Minigun has to start investing in probes and that kind of thing, he's going to limit his army production, you know, given the fact that the mineral count is starting to run a little bit dry. But he's going to pull the probes out of danger for the most part. Looks like the Hellions going to have to defend it. This potential base here for Drunken Boy. It's also a potential base for Minigun. A DT warps in. We'll be able to help out in taking down those Hellions there. Scan comes down. DT will survive, interestingly enough, but the base here for Drunken Boy is about to wear out. No more minerals are going to be present here. We get a pause from Minigun, gets everything back up and running. He's up at 170 supply. He's got a nice amount of tanks, 14 tanks, 6 ghosts here as well, along with all of those Hellbats. And it looks like he's going to try and deny this base from mining here. There is that siege up, very nicely done by Drunken Boy. He's going to take down this base very quickly. The ghosts trying to move into a position where they can throw down some good EMPs. How many will they get? Oh wow, those EMPs were perfect on top of not only the Immortals, but the Colossi here as well. Missed a couple of the Archons, but not to worry, the Vikings have come across. They say, hey guys, those Colossus are a little bit low, maybe I can help out with that. The tank's slowly pushing forwards here. Drunken Boy at the bottom of the ramp. This may not work out too well for him here, but a scan helps out. The Immortals are a total of 9, 10 Immortals almost, just plowing through all of those units, and Minigun says, good night, sir. I think it is time you leave the game. Loses the command center across to the side. The Nexus is now up and running. Hellions trying to do what they can, but I think it is all done and dusted now for our Terran player from FXO NA. What an exciting game. Constant drops from Drunken Boy, just obliterating the economy of Minigun and kept him back from reaching that really nice maxed out supply for so long. 145 workers have been killed here, and I think it may end with that total. Drunken Boy doing his best to try and micro out a couple of Hellions. He really doesn't have too much going for him back at home. There, you know, he's got no minerals coming in. Basically, we're long distance mining with some mules off this base here, and I don't think that's going to work out too well for his economy. A little bit of a financial crisis right now for Drunken Boy as he sits at 12 supply. He's lost all of his workers. Hilariously, he's lost all of his workers, but it's actually nothing near the total that Minigun has lost. And there you go, a GG from Drunken Boy. Just like a consistent harassment game from Drunken Boy while he gets his mech up and running. I would love to see some more players utilizing mech in this fashion. Of course, you've got the Strelic fashion where you just sort of move out with very powerful tank Thor forces, and then you've got what we saw with Breach in Breach versus White-Ra, where there were a lot of mines, a lot of big pushes at sort of 140 supply. This is the Drunken Boy version where you run along with lots of drops, lots of Hellbats, and just try and destroy your opponent's economy, as we saw here. Unfortunately, not working out too well for him. I think a couple of the engagements didn't go his way when they possibly could have, but it was a wonderful game nonetheless. Please be sure to share with your friends. Make sure you click that like button as well. Leave some comments if you want. If you like the game and you want to see some more mech games, or if you want to see some of these players, please do be sure to let me know, and I'll say hello to you as well. I'll catch you guys next time. On there, a la Grubby or someone like that, and it looks as if Neeb is just going to get a really nice amount of damage done there inside the main, picking off the Lings. Not necessarily economic damage in of itself, but he is able to just downsize the amount of map presence